Today on the Art of Culinary Spaces, we've got a special episode with two clients joining us for the very first time. Together, we will explore Virginia Commonwealth University's journey from convenience to community through a comprehensive dining master plan. This strategic roadmap charts a course for the next 5 generations of students, balancing retail and residential dining while creating meaningful social spaces. Please welcome FCSI member Sojo Alex from Envision Strategies, Stephen Barr from VCU, and Matt Lee from Hanbury Architects as they unpack the forward-thinking design considerations that will reshape this campus's dining landscape and foster deeper connections within the university community. Welcome to the show today. We're here to talk about the Dining Services Master Plan at Virginia Commonwealth University. And today we got a special treat for you because not only do we have our amazing consultant Sojo with us, but we've got our clients with us today as well. So getting into this episode, I start off the first question with Sojo. Everybody always wants to know, how did this project come about for you guys at Envision?
Well, thanks, Wade, for inviting me to do this podcast, along with Stephen and Matt, representing the consultant team. This is a really exciting project for us at Virginia Commonwealth, because what we've noticed was, and Stephen, you can attest to this too, VCU has been an innovative leader for dining for many years, right? So a couple of things that happened over the years. Number one, enrollment changed. And number two, there's a campus master plan that just came up as well. So as far as this goes, Stephen and his team wanted to understand, what business services that whole department needed to do and how to change their services or update their services and also their facilities to match up to the needs that came up. And also over the pandemic, a lot of the dining patterns for students had changed. And that's the other thing that Stephen and his team came up with as well. So putting all this together, along with the idea that, hey, your campus population is increasing, you've got new housing, your dining patterns have changed. We wanted to see how a dining master plan might help to help Stephen and his team to see what's next for the next 5 to 10 years, right? And that's when Matt from Hanbury was talking to Stephen, and he talked about how important dining plays as a role in building up the community and that engagement. And that's how we came up with this plan. So Matt invited us to be part of the team, the planning team. And we were able to work with Stephen and at VCU.
Stephen, I know, master plans. I've worked on a couple college campuses in my career before I got back into association management. What sparked the need? Obviously, have a need. You've come up with this great master plan. What sparked the beginning and realizing you guys needed some help to come up with this master plan for VCU?
Yeah, the point of the master plan that really became the aha moment was as we were looking through everything, we identified we wanted to be a little bit more of a residential campus in an urban environment. We wanted to kind of create or recreate that traditional college town feel, but we had to do that within the confines of where our property was in the middle of Richmond, Virginia. And looking across the board and seeing how each of the units could play into that, we realized dining's got a big, important part on making students feel like they're sitting in a traditional college campus or campus grounds versus sitting right downtown Richmond. So that's when the idea kind of sparked and said, you know what, we need to create more spaces that are more residential focused than just primarily retail.
Reading the article, I realized that you guys had kind of leaned heavily towards retail outlets or franchise outlets, if you will, on campus. What was the plans in the past, obviously, that became so dominant with the retail side or the franchise side? And what were the downsides to that of having too much on the franchise side?
Yeah, I think one of the reasons or primary reasons why we have so much retail is because of space constraints. Again, being on an urban campus, sometimes we don't have the ability to get, tens of thousands of square feet so that we can do some retail programming. So a lot of times, residential programming. So a lot of times then on the flip side, we'd see the retail. And it meets and checks a lot of the boxes because students at that point are familiar with a lot of those brands. They're comforted then they're coming into a campus that's in an urban environment. Parents still know they can go to the Chick-fil-A or they can go to the Subway or they can go wherever and get something to eat. But the downside of that too is then it creates an environment where it's mostly just transactional, right? There's not a sense of community building or opportunities for students to gather and get together and just meet new folks, right? You just want to go in, get your sandwich, grab your bag, and you walk out. And that was kind of the big problem that we saw with having a primarily retail food program.
Now, I also read you have a pretty liberal meal exchange program and policy there at VCU. So tell me how that affects your total ecosystem when it comes to the college dining system.
I think it kind of feeds into that part where we're talking about mostly transactional, right? That's one of the limiting factors of not having an abundance of residential programming. We wanted to make sure the meal plan could still be flexible for students so that they could utilize that as they wish and as they wanted. So part of that programming was then making sure that the meal plan could be used anywhere. And I mean anywhere. If it's a location that's dining services, you can use it. We've got a grocery store, you can use your meal plan. We've got Starbucks, you can use your meal plan. We've got a traditional rest hall, Market 810, you can use it. And we wanted to do that to make sure that there was flexibility there as well. Because we do have a lot of smaller locations, we always wanted to make sure, too, that we didn't come into some sort of service problem where we didn't have enough seats. Even though we do have a 750 seat dining hall, when we're trying to serve 28,000 students through the day, we had to make sure that we had enough opportunity, enough bandwidth to meet their needs. So creating that flexibility in the dining plan allowed us to have students spread out and not overwhelm a certain location, right, with any of the cash paying customers or visitors or whoever else wants to come on campus.
Yeah. Now, Matt, for you, what role did partners like yourself and Envision Strategies play in helping Stephen shape up a plan like this?
Yeah, we really work side by side to integrate the planning and the design, the operational strategy, and try to come at this from a really holistic perspective. Coming from a design firm perspective, we're really focused on student life and really dialing into, what is that student experience that you're having on campus and how is that leading toward building community? So as we're looking at the operational side of everything that's happening on, and then looking at the spatial side of what's happening and what the experiential moments are on that campus, really working together to make sure that one is supporting the other.
Now, so Joe, over the years we've talked in about some of the projects you've worked on. I know you're big into student feedback and behavioral influence on campuses. Tell me a little bit about what you did and what the student feedback and what their behavior was like on this project to help make the direction moving forward.
It's very interesting on this project because by the time we started this project, it was around summer, so we didn't get a lot of student feedback. However, VCU had done a lot of student surveys and other engagement that we were able to use a lot of that results. But interestingly, some of the surveys that they conducted, we noticed that convenience was the number one factor, which is the trend nowadays, right? Where they are, where they want to hang, that's where they want their food too. So it kind of contradicted a little bit with what Stephen was talking about. How do you still build that community and engagement piece as well? The other thing was that means they focused eating on more of the retail locations. And we also found out that kind of significantly reduced the number of students dining at the residence halls, especially at the busy peak times. So it was excess seating. And again, in urban environment, they're trying to go to wherever they can go, right? The other thing they also talked about was their meal plans. They really enjoyed the flexibility of the meal plan, of the fact that they can use it wherever they wanted to use it. So it's important. It was also important for students, along with all this, to see, how they can incorporate, how they can get the rich Richmond food culture on campus as well. So there was just a lot of factors that they brought up with this convenience, but they also wanted community, but they also wanted Richmond culture food. And then they also wanted to make sure that they get what they want where they want it, right? And so those are things that we saw. Also talking to students who, and just reading through some of the surveys of students who did not live on campus, they didn't want a meal plan because they're like, what was the value of this? So, and VCU was known for their voluntary meal plans, and their growth of that. So we're like, okay, what went down? And again, talking about patterns that have changed, especially after the pandemic, we wanted to see how to increase that voluntary meal plan growth as well. The other thing we also did as part of the study, we took a look at some peer institutions and did a benchmarking to see, okay, if these are the peers, these are the number of resident students who live on campus, how many dining halls do they have? Where are they located? And that way we were able to add more data to not just student feedback, but also not campus feedback alone, but what are your peers doing as well? So those are things that we noticed initially.
And for all of you, and I'm not sure who is the best one to answer this one, but for one of the things that came out of this was you decided to kind of pull back the retail side and go back to more of the student dining and you guys controlling it a little bit more. How did you evaluate which retail outlets would stay and which ones would be scaled back without disrupting or angering the student population that was already there?
Oh man, this is a whole treasure trove of information here. So, it always is interesting going through, and what we were looking at obviously is crowd favorites, things that folks wanted to go day in and day out, and they wanted to eat. We obviously wanted to keep those because folks were very happy with that. Obviously, when you're looking at 22 locations across our campuses, there's going to be some underperformers that are there, and realizing that we need to get rid of those underperformers, reassess and look at that space, and let's figure out what gaps we have in our program. As Sojo had talked about, that Richmond's got a great food scene, and we have a great campus where we have a ton of different students that are all combining and coming into our city center there that are looking for a little bit of taste at home. And we can take some of those students and take the culture and the cuisine that they miss, and we can bring that on campus and provide that with them and put it in some of those spaces that just weren't performing well. I think one of the things, and we'd mentioned it a little earlier here, was like, some of the downfalls of retail. And Sojo had talked about, we were known as a campus who had commuter students who participated in the plan, and we lost that at one point. And I think the other realization of having all this retail is, when time is a factor, especially for commuter students, time is the biggest thing that they're looking for. When we have the same retail on campus that's off campus, what's the unique factor there? Like, there's no difference between our Chick-fil-A or the Chick-fil-A down the street. And there was nothing unique anymore that said, you know what, I want to get a little bit of taste of VCU, a little bit of taste of Richmond, because on their way out, commuting to their job or going to what's next for them, they could get that anywhere. And I think that was a big wake-up call as well for us, and looking at this and looking at what we were missing, realizing by going that retail route, we kind of lost a little bit of our identity, and we needed to come back and get something uniquely VCU so folks could say, hey, you know what, this is something I want to participate in. This is something that I want to be part of.
That makes sense. And I think that's a great thing for everybody to think about. Like, you think you're doing the right thing by bringing in something that's similar or the same or familiar to the people that are coming on campus every day, but they're actually looking for something that's not. They can go next door and get Subway'd from their house. What can they eat there every day that they're on campus as a commuter? I think that's, again, one of those like hindsight 2020 things. You think you're doing the right thing, and then you get down to it, you're like, oh, maybe not anymore. But making all these changes is not easy, because it's not just dining hall that's going through a bunch of changes too. So Matt, you're involved a little bit more. I mean, how are you aligning the complexity, I guess, of there's housing plans, there's dining needs, there's construction timelines. I mean, this isn't just only dining and retail outlets. This is a massive plan. So how are you guys able to kind of plan this out with VCU?
Yeah, Wade, I think it's a great point. I think you look at any college campus, and it's a very large ecosystem, but dining obviously plays a critical component, again, to the experience and delivering those needs for students' needs. It was really critical for us, especially in kind of looking back at the campus master plan, right? Because that's something that's already had a lot of stakeholders speaking into it. Dining, maybe wasn't represented as well as we may want it. So I think that was something that when we struck out to do the dining master plan here, the idea is to couch it in terms and in the key principles that were in that master plan. So if we're thinking about it from Stephen's perspective, if Stephen's looking at, all right, what are the big moves happening on campus? How do I make sure I can align my operation to best suit what they're trying to accomplish there, to be that major team player? And what is it going to mean for our whole group? And how do we couch our terminology and our findings in a way that can align with that campus master plan? So that if we're going to the administration and say looking for dollars or advocating for a particular project or especially a big move, that it's something that if they look at this plan, they can understand that as well. So we're really trying to make sure we can make implementation as easy as possible or as frictionless as possible. I don't know how possible it is, but you're trying to achieve that balance. So, looking at talking with a lot of those other stakeholders, obviously working with Sojo, looking at the students' needs, and really trying to pull all of that together into something that moves forward in a positive direction.
Nice. Now, I know that you guys aren't also just worried about, I mean, it is all about dining. We've said that, but you also want to bring in some more entertainment, I guess, aspects of it. You want it to feel like a place they want to hang, not just a place that you go in and eat, get your food, get the heck out. So tell us a little bit about what some of the changes are with things with gaming, performance features, where they can bring in entertainers or they can bring in game nights or whatever it is to kind of keep people together to create more of a community feel versus just a dining hall, dine in, dine out, and that type of situation.
Yeah, Stephen and I could probably both speak to this a little bit. But one thing we were looking at is that, there is the student center on campus. It is slated for major renovation, but it's quite a ways down the road. And I think we have an opportunity here with Schaefer Court, which is one of the facilities where Market 810 is, to really transform that into being, a bit of a de facto student center. And it's located at the crossroads of campus. So really taking a look at the square footage we have available, and it's a good amount of square footage sitting in that building. And how do we reposition some of the programs that are in there? How do we bring in something new? How do we polish up what needs to be polished up, and then introduce more opportunity for programming and programs to happen in that space? So I think the ground floor is obviously a really large component there, and looking at how we adjust the retail that's in there and make something that, to Stephen's point, is uniquely VCU, that really speaks to that culture of Richmond, which is going to stand out from any other institution in the Commonwealth of Virginia and beyond amongst its peers. How do we create spaces that are student-centered and technology-enabled, that it's allowing them, that's kind of layered on the space in a way that makes it more usable or more functional for a variety of programming types. And, Stephen and his team already do a lot with the building, and the idea is to adjust it in a way that allows them to do even more. Stephen, if you'd like to add on to all of that.
Yeah, I think, man, there's a lot that went into this that we factored. I think the main intrusion, the thing that was the wake up call for me that sparked this entire thing to get a group on was once we were deemed back from the pandemic, when we were full time and we were going and classes were back in person and everybody was cranking along. Every student was sitting down at a table by themselves, looking at their phones or their computers. And we realized that there was a huge disconnect because the generation of students or the current generation of students that were with us had been introduced to university life through a digital medium. And that's all they knew. The days of sitting down and having conversation and building community and just randomly talking to people because you really enjoyed what you were eating and you wanted to share it with somebody like, this is really good, I'm going to get another plate. Those days were gone. And it reminded me of when I was growing up. I'm from a little town outside of New Orleans. Food is a huge part of our culture and everything that we do. I've had some of the best conversations. I've met some of the greatest people and come up with some of the best ideas over a plate of food. And it hurt me on the inside to watch all of these students who are struggling with mental health issues and having a hard time getting involved in the community and really connecting with the college campus, that they couldn't do that. Even a place where it should be very easy to sit down and just talk about a commonality of shared goodness that's on your plate. So that sparked a whole series of things that said, we need to do something about this. And this is when that whole transactional thing came about that said, dining doesn't need to be just a transaction of, I want to grab something, get in a bag, and I want to walk off. It needs to be more purposeful, and we need to be more intentional on how we get people to talk. So the first thing we thought of was, what if we brought in some analog games that people could just sit down, and if they have a few moments, they want to disconnect and get away from it all, they could just do that. They could just play games. I got the idea. I have two younger kids. We took a family vacation to the Smoky Mountains, and if anybody's ever been up that area, you can rent these cabins, and everybody's always trying to pitch how their cabin's better than anybody else. And the cabin that we particularly stayed at had a retro arcade console in the space that had the old 8-bit games on it, right? So, Galactica and Centipede and all this other stuff. Now, my kids have grown up in obviously an era here where, they've got some of the best digital performing games, and they have TV on demand and streaming everything that's there. But the one thing they thought was the best thing in the world was this analog game console that they could sit and play. And they thought that was the coolest thing in the world. And they sat and played together. It's obviously not connected to the world. It's just a plug and turn on type thing. And that kind of got me an idea when I came back. We need to put some games upstairs in the dining hall so folks could do this. Skeeball was a big one that was there, because who doesn't like Skeeball? We got some analog console games so you could play Pac-Man. I didn't realize how many folks like to play Pac-Man, but people will play Pac-Man for hours. We got an NBA Jams game, because VCU is a basketball campus. We obviously got a basketball shooting game that's up there. We got some pinball games. And we also got traditional board games. You can play Battle Shift, you can play checkers, chess, Uno, things like this that are out there. And we just put it out there to see what would happen. And it was so awesome to watch the transformation happen as people came up, got something to eat, and realized there were some games over in the area that they could play with and do something with. And they were first hesitant, like there was a catch, like there was some fine print somewhere that was going to get them, but they could come over. But watching those folks naturally gravitate towards that, just to kind of get a breather, or take away, or hang out, was quite an awesome experience. So we use that as kind of our guiding principle there to get in, to figure out, like, how do we make this space, Schaefer Court Dining Center, how do we make it that catch-all for everybody? Thinking about time, thinking about community and all that, and developing a space that if folks just wanted that transaction, they just wanted to go up and get something to eat and walk away, they could. Or if they wanted to make it their third space and they wanted to hang out and make it feel like a living room and play some skee-ball, they could do that as well. And that's where Matt and Sojo did a great job getting all that together for us.
Sorry, I was going to say, Stephen, you came up with some great numbers on usage for skee-ball, I believe, that you tracked.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I was reloading our lockers that have all the board games, and I decided I wanted to look to see how many skee-ball games were played in the last year. And I'm happy to say that we have peaked 120,000 completed skee-ball games in one academic year, fall and spring semester. So it only counts whenever you throw the ninth ball. So I'm sure there were a lot of half games that were there where they realized, I should probably be getting to class right now and not playing skee-ball. But it counts the complete cycle that we had over 120,000 games played over two machines. So, I mean, it's working, right? And if that's what it takes,
that's amazing,
to get someone connected to the campus, one skee-ball game at a time, then let's do it.
Yeah, you've either got a lot of people playing it or somebody that doesn't go to class anymore. So that just sits there and plays.
Yeah,
it.
I'm waiting a call from our academic advisors to say, hey, Stephen, can you lock these things down during the middle of the day? We got a lot of students that are not making it to class.
Well, I hope that the listeners are paying attention, especially all of you that are on college campuses, because everything you've just said, as you're talking about the experience they have, I've got a son that's going to be a senior in college, and a medium-sized Midwestern university. And what you explain is exactly what he's gone through in his college career. He was in high school during COVID. He came out of it, got to college, and it was just starting to get back up and running, full running again, like a regular college campus post-COVID. But they have that same problem. And his freshman year, when you don't really know anybody, he talked about the fact that it wasn't, the dining hall wasn't a hang. And that was so much different than when I went to school, because that is where you got to know people and you met people, or you just got together with your buddies or your friends and you just hung out for a little bit during a meal and you caught up with each other or something like that. It was just a centralized location, if you will, to do it. And the other thing that he started doing in their resident halls, and he's worked at orientation as an orientation leader. So the future, incoming freshman, he's doing board games again, because he's finding that the younger generation and his generation is happy to play the simple board games again. And I think, who knows the psychological backstory of that, although he is a sociology major, so he probably understands it way better than I do. A lot of it has to do with just unplugging and playing a simple game, because I play the video games. I'm on PS5 and everything else. But they are complicated. There are games that I do not, it's way too complicated for me. It's not Atari 2600. I need more or less than 18 buttons and, a sequence of 25 steps in order to do a move. Whereas they can figure that out. But I think they're looking for that simplistic life again, if you will. Board games and hiking and stuff like that I'm seeing on the college campuses a lot more if it's available. So I hope people are paying attention and what you guys are doing. Obviously, you're watching what people are doing. You're seeing what they're interacting with. And if you're not doing that on your college campus, shame on you, because that's what the generations want right now. Now, we could be having this conversation 10 years from now and it's completely different, as we all know. Generations change, ways things go about. But yeah, I'm really, really happy to see that it's not just the college campus that he's on. It's something that's going on similar.
Add to it all. I think it's a really great conversation. And I think you're right. I think the technology can be always on and always plugged in can be very draining. And I think, what we probably have always known, but are probably discovering more and more, and we're human. And I think we are wired for connection, and students are really enjoying that opportunity to unplug and be face to face again. It's not always the easiest or most comfortable thing for many students because they've had experiences leading up to some of the students that are in school now. But I think that's where places like dining especially can really lead the way in helping those students reconnect with each other. And I think, to your point, being able to turn off all the other elements and just play something as simple as a game of skeeball or a board game goes a really long way. And I think that in-person and that face-to-face communication and connection, I think it's a great multiplier when we're talking about student experience and happiness and mental health on campus.
Well, and as you guys have all said, the more you can get them to stay there with whether it's entertainment, whether it's performance, whether it's games, the more you can force them to stay together, they will interact. It's just that's not just the way they do it anymore. They can do it digitally so quickly, but they do want that face-to-face interaction. I agree. So we're starting to run out of time here a little bit, but I definitely want to find out. So where are we at in the phases that you're at? What we started at, where are we at now? And then what is the plan over the next 2 to 3, 5 years moving forward?
Oh, we're so it's a chess game where we have to get some space free before we can start taking other spaces over and renovating. So we happily to say though we're moving, we're going forward. So we have currently just started, or we're in the process of just starting to renovate a space that used to be a former Chili's location, and then an internal homegrown location called Avo Kitchen, which was an allergy friendly station that folks could go if they had allergens and needed to eat. We did some reconfiguration in our main dining hall, and we were able to open a allergen-friendly station in that space, so folks didn't have to go to the edge of campus. This location's right on the edge of our campus. And Chili's wasn't performing as it needed to, so as part of our assessment, we decided we were going to close it. And I'm happy to say that what we're going to do with the space is we're actually going to take our catering kitchen, which is located in the belly of our dining hall on the first floor. We're actually going to relocate it out to that space, as well as build an event and a conference center that's over there that kind of is coupled with the catering kitchen, so that you can kind of get everything you need under one roof. And then once that catering kitchen is moved and we're up and running, that allows us to start really doing a lot of the fun stuff in the main dining hall. Because then at that point we can open up the first floor. We can expand that out to what our vision is of the LaGuardia model, as we will key, or we have keyed out there, where the first floor retail is set up for folks who want to just grab that bag of food and they want to go. For folks who want to sit down and eat, they can do that on the first floor. Or people who want to go to a 24/7 automated C-store at any point, 24 hours a day, we'll have that option for them as well. So it kind of meets everything, creating a stage and a space where folks can kind of gather. We can do performances and things like this. All of that will kick off once this happens. And after the first floor, Then we go attack the second floor and we redo the programming upstairs for the all-you-care dining facility. So we're on our way. We've started and we've kicked off and we're doing that. So I'm hoping over the next couple of years, as the projects get wrapped up, we'll just start rolling into the next one and go through this phased approach where we systematically make all of our spaces a little bit more community friendly.
I always like to think of it as a slide puzzle when we're looking at it. And so it's just a series of small moves and shifting spaces around campus, bringing some back to the center and pushing some things out to the edge. But then in the end, you get that great whole and everything really comes together for that final vision.
And it's very common in a urban campus setting too, right? Just moving the sliding puzzles. But Stephen, I think we were also thinking of using the catering kitchen as to somewhat using it as a commissary as well to help with some of the grab and goes that we want to do in retail. So reusing the spaces to build up retail, but more internally focused and also so overall to help be financially sustainable too.
Yeah, absolutely. That helps the bottom line. And then it also does another thing. And as part of that planning is, bringing that unique Richmond taste or food or cuisine, trying to order that from a food catalog, from a logistics distribution center and stuff like this, sometimes doesn't check the box, right? Of what you want. But if we can make the grab and go items ourselves in our own commissary, we can put our own spin on it and our own twist for what the wants and needs of our students or the Visa community want. So we can provide some really unique grab and go opportunities that aren't just your typical ham sandwich, turkey sandwich, yogurt parfait, salad, right? I just probably described 98% of every grab and go that's across the United States and college campuses. So we're trying to change that. We want to make that a little bit more robust as we're doing this as well.
Very good. Well, final question I've gotten, and this will go to each of you, and we'll start with you, Stephen, and then we'll go to Matt, and then Sojo. What are going through what you've already gone through and what you see ahead? What are the top 3 things you would recommend to a college or university that's struggling right now or thinking about making a change moving forward? Top 3 things, if you would, each of you, advice, I guess.
I think it's really important to first sit and get out and just watch, just observe, you got to get out from behind the desk. You've got to go sit down. You've got to put yourself there. I know we always think, hey, we're on campus, we're there, but really sit down and focus on what's happening and understand where those gaps are. That was the first thing that sparked the idea for me, was watching all these folks staring into their screens during lunch as opposed to interacting. I think the other thing is identifying spaces that are underutilized and seeing what you can do to transform them into something that is community building, right? And it doesn't always have to be the main dining hall. If you've got a food court or you've got an underutilized bookstore space or things like this that are part of your purview, how can you recondition those or renovate those into spaces that allow folks to come and gather? And third is just sit back and listen to figure out what students want to eat as well, right? A lot of times when we're trying to do decisions really fast, we're trying to make these changes because we only have a limited time and when we can do renovations and when you can do things, people are eating a lot of chicken, so let's put another chicken place in there. But I think sitting down and looking at your campus community and finding out what really do we need to do to make ourselves unique that fit the expectation of the campus, right? Of course, when we were picking all these retail locations, we were asking folks what they would like. And of course, it was very easy for them to say Chick-fil-A because by their house is a Chick-fil-A and they were used to getting it. So we did this. And again, we talked about it earlier. Then we started losing our uniqueness and the thing that made us VCU. But sit down and ask and say hey, what's going on? So I guess sit and listen and watch. Figure out where you can transform some spaces to people to gather. And 2, figure out the best way to get them the nutrition, the food, and the things that they'd like to eat.
Nice. Matt, what about you?
Let's see, 3 things. I think a major thing in my mind is, the idea that, small moves can have a big impact. So even if you're talking about a really large vision as something like a dining master plan across an entire university, it doesn't have to be a series of projects that are so large that it takes 10 years for them to come to fruition. I think that the magic and what Stephen and his team are doing is they're able to pick off a series of smaller moves, but it's all contributing to that whole. And I think there's a lot of power in that because it's scalable. And so a lot of institutions that may think big change or big cultural shifts are difficult to accomplish or too big a bite to chew. It's not necessarily the case. I think you can do it in small moves. That leads me to my second thing, and I think that's understanding the story that you want to tell. And when I say that, I think storytelling, it helps you get out your why, right? We should probably overuse that, but it gets out your why. But it really helps, in this case, students feel really connected to the university, to each other, and even to the food. So the narrative reinforces that, dining here isn't just about a meal. It's about identity and community and place. And so I think making that one-to-one, that very personal connection with the service that you're offering to the student body, and then also understanding its role in building community is extremely important. A third thing, for me, it's always going to come down to community. It's just the power of community. Again, you're not just serving a meal, you are trying to build something much, much greater than that. And so that's student interaction, it's student to faculty interaction, it's interaction with the staff that are running dining services. You're building it. It's a mini city is what you have going on campus. So everything you're doing and keeping that idea of building community in mind is extremely important in anything you do.
Sojo, last but not least.
So I think between Stephen and Matt, they touched on a lot of good points. Some of the things that I've seen recently, especially with the higher ed market, right? They are changing by the day between politics, between enrollment cliff, between everything else that's happening. It's changing by the day. So how do we still keep the plan relevant? Because we're planning for the next 10 years, 5 to 10 years. How do we still plan for that and keep that relevant? I think there's one of those things that, we have to take into consideration. Secondly, the good thing about what Matt and Stephen, mostly Stephen, was trying to do on campus is talking about storytelling. It's not just that, hey, this is what we're going to do, but how did he bring the other stakeholders into this vision of dining is not just about food. It's plays an important role in community, in recruitment, retention, and all of that. And so how do us as leaders and business services leaders try to bring the rest of the stakeholders so that we can tell that story, right? And so Stephen's done a really good job with that. And last but not least, every master plan is different that we do. As you know, Matt, every campus is different. Every culture is different. So what's good about and unique about this and why I love this project is, yes, there was data. Yes, we observed a lot of things. But what Stephen was already doing with the, thinking about the community and mental health, how we were able to take that and make that part of the 5 to 10 year plan. And so he was already working on a lot of things. He and his team were already working on a lot of things. But even if it's for the next 5, that became a part of the guiding principle, what we need to do for 5 to 10 years. So those are at least 3 things of what we can do. The master plans.
Very good. Well, that's all the questions I got for you guys today. Sojo, you're being the consultant on the panel here. Tell the public how they can find out more about you and Envision Strategies.
You can find a lot about who we are and what we do at envstrategies.com, or better still, follow us on LinkedIn. We have a lot more of these type of stories and master plans and other campuses that we worked on that we love to share these stories and learning experiences. So definitely follow us on LinkedIn.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of the Art of Culinary Spaces. We hope this conversation has sparked your creativity and inspired new ideas within the world of food service design and planning. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss out on all of our future podcasts. Stay tuned for our next episode when we explore another groundbreaking project and exceptional design from FCSI members that are transforming the culinary landscape.